In the early days of September 1666, London was a city alive with noise and movement, yet burdened with narrow, crowded streets and wooden houses stacked tightly together. The air smelled of smoke from hearth fires, and the river carried the sounds of merchants shouting prices, horses clattering on the cobblestones, and children laughing in the alleys. Life seemed ordinary, though beneath the surface, danger quietly waited. On the night of September 1st, most of the city was asleep, unaware of the storm that was about to swallow their lives and reshape London forever. It began inside the small bakery of Thomas Farriner on Pudding Lane. The embers from his oven, still glowing after a day of work, caught hold of some dry kindling left nearby. No one noticed at first. London was no stranger to small fires. They were common in a city of timber and pitch, where rooftops leaned so close that neighbors could talk across the narrow gap between their windows. But this fire was different. Within minutes, flames shot upward, fierce and hungry, feeding on the bakery's wood beams. The blaze cracked through the roof and leapt to the neighboring houses, carried by a strong east wind that turned the flames into a monster. By dawn on September 2nd, the fire was raging uncontrollably. Witnesses later recalled the sound of buildings groaning as their wooden frames buckled and collapsed. The night sky glowed red as if the heavens themselves were burning. Families rushed into the streets clutching children, pulling carts piled with whatever belongings they could save. Pots, chairs, Bibles, or whatever treasures their hands could carry in haste. Dogs barked frantically, horses bolted, and bells rang in panic. London's people had seen fires before, but never one that moved with such speed and ferocity. The Lord Mayor of London, Sir Thomas Bloodworth, was awakened with the news. Groggy and irritated, he dismissed the danger at first, muttering, "A woman could piss it out," and went back to bed. But soon, the scale of the disaster became undeniable. The fire leapt from house to house, skipping streets in fiery arcs, and the wind howled like a beast feeding the flames. By midday, entire rows of homes had vanished. St. Magnus Church by London Bridge caught fire, its tall spire collapsing in a shower of sparks. The great wooden bridge itself burned fiercely, scattering flaming debris onto the river below. Boats ferrying desperate families filled the Thames, their hulls glowing in the fire's reflection. As the fire spread, fear gripped the city. Some whispered of foreign enemies, believing the French or the Dutch had set London ablaze as revenge for the ongoing wars. Others muttered of divine punishment, a judgment for sins left unrepented. Panic gave way to chaos. Shops were looted, and crowds fought for space on boats leaving the burning banks of the river. The king's soldiers tried to maintain order, but the fire's roar drowned every command. King Charles II, young yet resolute, came forward to lead his people. He ordered fire breaks to be made, rows of houses pulled down to stop the flames from advancing. But many citizens, fearing for their homes, resisted the destruction. Their hesitation gave the fire more time, more fuel, more lives to consume. By the third day, the inferno was unstoppable. The heat was so intense that it melted steel and cracked stones. Flames curled through narrow lanes like serpents, igniting warehouses filled with oil, tar, and wine. Barrels exploded, sending fountains of fire into the sky. Witnesses spoke of molten lead flowing from the roof of St. Paul's Cathedral like rivers of silver. The cathedral, that proud monument of faith, burned with a fury no one thought possible. Its mighty dome collapsed into ash, leaving only a smoking ruin. For 4 days, the city burned. Families camped in the fields beyond the walls, watching helplessly as smoke turned day into twilight. From a distance, London seemed like a single vast torch, its skyline erased by fire and falling ash. Hunger and thirst gnawed at the refugees. Mothers cradled infants with soot-streaked faces. Old men sat in silence, staring at the destruction of lifetimes of labor. Priests prayed aloud for mercy, their voices trembling as sparks drifted on the wind like fiery snow. On September 6th, the fire finally began to weaken. The winds eased, and with the fire breaks now enforced by soldiers, the flames slowly starved. Smoldering ruins stretched for miles. London was unrecognizable. More than 13,000 houses lay in ashes, along with 87 churches, the Royal Exchange, and countless businesses. Nearly 100,000 people were left homeless. And yet, despite the devastation, remarkably few had perished. Only a handful of deaths were officially recorded, though many suspected the true toll was higher, hidden beneath the rubble and silence. The survivors faced despair, but also resilience. They scavenged for food, dug through ashes for anything salvageable, and began to rebuild tents and shelters in open fields. The king promised aid, and Parliament debated plans to reconstruct the city. Streets were to be widened, buildings made of brick and stone instead of timber, and fire safety laws strictly enforced. Out of the ashes, a new London would rise, safer, stronger, grander than before. But the memories of those days lingered in every survivor's heart. The roar of flames, the collapse of St. Paul's, the river of people fleeing with tears and smoke in their eyes. These became etched into the soul of the city. The Great Fire of London was not just a disaster of wood and stone. It was a crucible of suffering and endurance. From its ashes, London discovered both its fragility and its strength. And even today, centuries later, when the wind howls through the narrow streets and the bells of St. Paul's ring across the Thames, one can almost hear the echoes of that inferno, the voices of the past whispering of the night when London burned and the dawn that promised its rebirth.